Rogan josh, lamb rogan josh. So rogan josh is a really classic Kashmiri dish. All of the flavour comes from the browning process and the intensity of spice. Like the best kind of Kashmiri food, it is simple and soft, but the flavours are very strong. So the end experience of eating something like that is ultimate comfort and structural support. So emotional support for me. Food is always emotional, and this dish plays right into my heart space. So this is a lamb shoulder. So basically I'm cutting the chunks quite large because the browning process is protracted. If you cut the lamb into too small of a piece, it disintegrates. And I like to keep the fat that's on there because I love the extra richness that comes through the browning process when the fat is rendered. See, and look at that. I don't know if it's it, but that cap of fat on the lamb, there is so much flavour in this piece, and I love, my dog's whimpering to get some at my feet, but you know, rendering all of this contributes so much. Okay, so this is going to get marinated for 10 minutes or so. So around a cup of yogurt. So it's black cardamom, bay leaf, cinnamon, and clove, and a little bit of asafoetida. If you don't know what asafoetida is, I do have a few different videos on my website, sarinakamini.com, and on the YouTube channel explaining both the health benefits and the uses of asafoetida. So, a couple of black cardamom pods, so 4 cinnamon quill, half a dozen clove, a few bay leaf, and then I'm just going to mix this through. Oh my gosh, that smells amazing already. So rogan josh is about how you cook the meat. So it involves yogurt, ghee, oil, asafoetida, and that sort of whole garam masala spice, which is what we're looking at here with the cinnamon, bay leaf, clove, and black cardamom. And the process is essentially browning meat in quite a lot of oil, ghee, and yogurt, and that process is what contributes that base broad flavour profile that so beautifully supports the dense spice that comes in later, and the cooking time, because if the meat isn't well prepared for that length of time cooking, the flavour won't articulate and communicate itself properly. So what we're doing by browning the meat is really creating a foundation. Okay, so that's going to wait for 10 minutes. We'll come back to it. Once the lamb's had a little bit of time, we're going to heat ghee in a heavy bottom pot or kadai or a heavy based wok, and then start the browning process. So quite a lot of oil. This is a non-GMO canola oil that's grown in WA, and it's amazing. Like, I think the incredible thing about oils and any kind of food at all is we get used to eating them in quite a processed state, and then this canola oil, when it's tried, has the most incredible notes of hazelnut, corn. It's incredibly rich, incredibly silken, very oily, which I know sounds like a ridiculous thing to say about oil, but the viscosity is intense. So what I'm actually going to do is do a little bit of a blend of both. So I'm going to do half a cup of ghee and then top with a little bit of this canola oil. Now, because it has such a beautiful and quite a strong taste, it actually is going to contribute that taste as well into the dish, which I love, because so often vegetable oils are industrialized to the point of having the taste completely removed. So this is just a really great addition to my pantry. Salt and asafoetida. It's going to go in with the browning, and this is going to spatter sensibly. I'll dry my wet little kitchen tool. So I can smell the fragrance is really strong because of the canola oil, and I can smell it when it's heating. So always, all of your senses. You want to be able to rely on touch and smell and sight to see when the temperature's arriving at the space that you need it to be. starting to smoke. So I'm going to put the lamb in. Cover it. Smooth, Sarina. And I'm just going to wait for the initial spitting to cease, and then I'm going to open it up and put in the salt and the asafoetida. So this is the process that you need to pay attention to and that you can't skip. This is where rogan josh is made, in this part of the cooking process. This is still on high. And you can just see as it progresses how the texture's changing, the colour's changing. This isn't where we actually cook the lamb so much. I know that it seems like this is the cooking process, but this is the initial flavour input process. And you can see already that put this way, that the yogurt's drying here and starting to dry out and to stick, and this is an indication of what's happening in there, and that's what we want. We want it to dry and to separate from the oil. So to take shortcuts at this point will actually circumvent the authenticity of the dish. And really, when you're talking about the exquisite flavour that it provides, you want your dish to be authentic, because that's where deliciousness lives. Dad always used to stand and cook with his leg in the crane pose and a glass of Shiraz in one hand and a joint in the other. I can see now why it's quite a long process. It wouldn't hurt. Maybe I will do the glass of wine. Maybe he's right. This kind of a Cabernet is the kind of wine you want to be drinking. The roganjosh as well. I guess it's been maybe 15 minutes or so. The yogurt's really starting to thicken. You can see the split here, and you can actually visually see the caramelization process. So you can see how rich and caramelized the yogurt and the oil is becoming together. And as this cooks down and the level gets lower and the meat itself becomes exposed to the heat of the sides of the pan, well, then the meat's going to start to stick, and that's when the browning process really begins. So at that point, you've really got to be paying attention and using your spoon to scrape to make sure that it sticks but it doesn't burn, because you do want the sticking, because that's where the heat's hitting the meat and where it's causing it to brown and to come off. That's where all that flavour is kind of what's the word, like converging. That's the convergence of flavour. Okay, so see now, it's changed completely. So the yogurt's all dried out. Now it's oil, sizzling oil. And I've turned the heat down a little bit because otherwise it's going to burn. So it's still high, but it's not quite at full heat. It's about 80% of the stovetop. And now what we do is wait for the oil to evaporate just a little bit further. And once that happens, we're gonna add water twice, but just in little bits, just to prolong the browning process. It's like a really prolonged process. I think Kashmiri food is all about the prolongation of patience. I know that that is what it was like growing up in our house anyway. See the browning happening? So this is all being scraped off the pot, and this will all end up on the meat. So it's really finishing off now. So what we're going to do is pop in the chili water. Chili elongates flavour, it creates length, so vertical length in the dish. It provides heat, but it also in this instance gives colour as well. It looks instantly rich. And then what we're going to add is the main bulk of spice. So the ground spice at this point, really a lot of the flavour's already in there. So we've got the whole spice, the hing, asafoetida, the chili, the fats, the oils, and now we're putting in some dried spice. So ginger, 2 teaspoons. So there's lots of warmth in ginger, lots of roundness and density, and the same with fennel. So ground fennel, 4 teaspoons, which is a lot. Heat goes down just a little bit. Oh my God. It's like, the gravy is so thick and rich, it's almost like the same texture as if you had bitten into a wedge of brownie. Like that's how full the mouthfeel is. But the flavour inside of that mouthfeel is very soft and very subtle. And those two elements, strength and softness, typify Kashmiri Pandit cooking. Seriously spectacular. So it does need some water added at this point. 2 cups. You can see when you add the volume of water now, the yogurt that's and the caramelization that's on the outer of the meat then seeps into the water and you have an instant gravy. Do you see that? Turn it down a little bit now. There's an instant thickening. Suddenly it's smooth and it's soft. When you add the water back, all of that browned caramelization on the outer of the meat submits, I guess, to the water that's in the pot, and all of a sudden you have this just beautiful, rich, soft gravy as opposed to a hard caramelization. And this then is silken and soft. Just the gravy alone. It's magic.